Hello, everybody. What's going on? And welcome back to the Blue Surge podcast. As always, I am your co-host, Mike, alongside Joe. We have had a very long week, but we got rested. We're ready to go. Joe, how have you been this week, dude?
The weekend was pretty good. I had a chance to go up to Toronto, visit some friends, and happened to be the same weekend that Toronto clinched to go to the finals for the NBA. So the city got pretty crazy. So it was a lot of fun to go see that.
Yeah, when you texted me about that after I watched the game, I was like, no, he's not there, is he? I heard it was absolute just chaos there.
Everybody screaming, honking horns. I definitely remember the last time our city had a championship. So kind of reminded me of that. I wish we had that championship again.
Well, what's unique about Toronto, too, is this is their first for basketball. Yeah. They've been close a lot, and it finally happened. So I was really happy for him to watch the end of Game 6 and see that the city was going crazy ballistic. So that's really cool that you got to experience that.
Yeah, but we're here to talk about Pokemon, enough of the sports stuff, because I'm sure half our audience doesn't care about sports. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but this is Pokemon.
It is Pokemon indeed. What'd you do in Pokemon this week? Because I know you did play a little bit.
So I played on Monday. I happened to get a little bit bored, and I built Blastoise GX. And I found out that thing can set up fairly quickly and fairly fast, as long as you don't make stupid boneheaded plays.
I mean, is it easy to get the rare candies going pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think first game I set up 2 Blastoise GX and a Powerful Squall Blastoise within turn 2, I think.
How'd you get those pieces?
Alolan Ninetales GX.
Okay, so you did. It does go with the Ninetales engine. I figured it did, but you never know.
Yeah, and then the Ninetales kind of sat on your bench, unfortunately, for a while. So I got to figure out how to kind of deal with that. I don't have the deck how I want it to be, but I like it.
Yeah, and I mean, Ninetales sits on your bench, but it moves the deck. You need it.
Yeah.
So if the sacrifice is it sits on your bench, then that should be totally fine.
But I was surprised that all my opponents went for Ninetales, making it an easy target. But
right, it is 2 prizes, and it's just a risk you have to take. Did the deck end up playing how you wanted it to?
I think it was a little slower than I wanted it to, but it can set up very fast as long as I don't make the stupid plays. Like I made some misplays, I could have won an extra game, but overall 1 and 2 with it. But I think I could have gone 2 and 1 by not making some dumb plays.
That's fair, and it's your first week with the deck, so you play it more. And just like I had with Zapdos last week, the more you play a deck, the better you'll get at it. So I will not be shocked if you come back in the next coming weeks and it's in a good shape.
Yeah, I think this is a deck I'll ride for a little bit. I do like it.
I myself did not play any Pokemon. I was in Washington, D.C. for 4 days, and what a tiring 4 days that was, getting to see all the historic monuments again and just revisiting that city over Memorial Weekend was really, really special. I didn't get to play any Pokemon. I haven't even thought about it in like 4 or 5 days in terms of playing, just because of that trip. So I haven't really played anything this week, which probably is a good thing because it's allowed me to kind of refresh for a second and kind of get myself back on track in terms of what I want to play. But I didn't play anything, and I just kind of spent some time looking at deck lists and getting ready to look at what Madison's going to look like, because I still need to pick my deck for this format, and I still haven't found it yet. And it sounds like you might have found it in Blastoise, so hopefully you end up kind of sticking with that moving forward.
Oh, I'm almost going to ride and die with Alolan Executor.
Oh, true. Eggs. Ride or die eggs. Blastoise will be tier 2.
Oh, yeah.
So our plan today for the podcast is going to be a little more condensed than last week. Last week, we had a lot of cards that we had to go through, like 87,000 different cards, some of which were terrible. And we kind of hit a little coasting mode. I think you can agree with me on that. We just had too many cards to talk about. Yeah,
we essentially looked at a whole new set.
Yeah, we were breaking things down, trying to make room for all the cards, spent like 40 minutes going over cards. And today, going to be a little bit nicer because really we're zoning in on about 6 cards. Miracle Twins did have their set list released, but the good part is we've already gone over most of those cards. So we won't really have to go through too many. So we're going to go through that. There's a few gym promos we're going to talk about. They're at least promos in Japan, but we're going to get them in some form. And then we're going to go over our Madison regional predictions. Madison is a little bit different in the way that it's placed in the meta because usually it's the second tournament that a new set is legal. It happened with Guardians Rising, and now it's happening with Unbroken Bonds. So usually this is a tournament where some really unique stuff pops up, and it's a really reactive tournament. So I'm very excited to talk about decks that we think are going to be successful and maybe shift the meta a little bit when the upcoming tournament occurs. We are going to start with those new cards, though, before we get into that. So first things first, Miracle Twins. The set list has been officially revealed. Again, most of the cards we have gone over. If you want to see the full list, if you haven't yet, just go to Poke Beach. It'll be there, all listed. Again, most of the cards that are on there, we've already covered.
But no new search card, no new ball search cards, unfortunately.
No, Joe swore that he saw Nest Ball on this list.
There's a
there
different
is no
post.
such Nest Ball.
It's a different post that I got mixed up with someone else.
Yeah, I think you found it. I'm pretty sure that's an alternative art, but I could be wrong. We did find it in a post, but it was not related to Miracle Twins.
You can only hope.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if we get Nest Ball, I don't think anyone's going to be upset, really.
No.
Now that we have Cherish Ball coming, it's not as impactful, but for all the little guys, I don't think Nest Ball getting reprinted would be a bad thing.
Nope.
The 3 cards, though, that we are going to talk about that are on this list, and there's really only 3 that are relevant, are Aerodactyl GX and 2 trainer cards. One of them is called Stadium Navigator and Channeler. And we are going to start with Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl did get a GX, which is pretty cool, especially knowing that we have that Fossil Stadium coming out. Aerodactyl is a 210 HP Pokemon. It is a stage 1 and evolves from unidentified fossil, although with the Stadium, I believe you skip that step. It has the ability Prehistoric Wind. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, the attacks of your opponent's basic Pokemon cost 1 colorless more. It has Rock Smash for 1 fighting and 2 colorless for 120 damage, and then has, for 1 fighting energy, Wild Dive GX. 50 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. It's weak to grass, and that's about it. What do you think about this card?
I like it for multiple reasons. Love the ability with this Pokemon. I can see it being played in like a little aggro stall type of thing. The energy cost I think is reasonable, even though we're losing DCE, but I think it's still reasonable. I love the GX attack because it's a one attach and destroy something, anything in front of you. And I love that it has no retreat cost.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that it does have free retreat, which is pretty big, actually.
So I can definitely see this card being played with the Stadium and everything.
Yeah, I mean, Prehistoric Wind is a cool ability because it makes the basic Pokemon's attack cost 1 more. So you get into kind of that Trevenant territory, that old Trevenant from Breakpoint, I want to say. It allows that Charizard, that Zekrom, even that Zapdos to require 1 more energy attachment.
You're nullifying the whole like Thunderous Mountain stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, it nullifies a lot of things, and I don't know, it's a solid Pokemon. 120 is not the best damage to be hitting right now because things are a little beefier, but I mean,
you do hit stuff.
You 2-hit stuff, and you do take care of Pikarom. I mean, that although Pikarom is not a number 1 deck, you do hit Pikarom. You don't one-shot Zapdos, which is kind of frustrating because of resistance. But
if you toss in the Fighting Dojo, you're good.
Or Diancie.
Yeah.
So there's ways, and because this card is searchable through that Fossil Stadium, and it makes it skip that Fossil evolution stage. Yeah, I think this card is viable.
Pokemon Research Lab.
Yeah, because of that, it allows it to skip the unidentified fossil phase, if I'm correct, and that's huge. That's huge for this card because it actually makes it viable, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be a deck that's played, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it'll be a cheap deck that can do some damage. I don't know what will support it, but there's a lot of fossils that are being printed in this set, so you'll be able to kind of compare and contrast in terms of what partners might fit. Moving on to the next card that we're going to talk about. It is a trainer, and it is called Stadium Navigator. Stadium Navigator is an item, and it says, flip 2 coins. For each heads, search your deck for a stadium card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Pretty simple, don't you think?
Yep, pretty simple, pretty fair. Don't need if you need. I don't think you need 2 stadiums, but it's like your timer ball, so it's kind of a nice 50-50 shot at least.
Yeah,
And
it's timer ball logic.
yeah, which is going to be great for a lot of things with the Prism stadiums to get off the bat, like your Heat Factory and your Thunderous Mountain. So the things you need to have early on, it's potential to do. I like it.
Yeah, it's not as good as greens would be to find a stadium, but at least, like you said, and like I said, it's timer ball logic, and it's an item, so it'll never be a 4 of, but it has a slot or two in some decks that are really stadium dependent, and decks that you really, 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 really need stadiums turn 1, turn 2, and you can't play the greens engine because it's ability based. It might be viable, like the fossil decks.
Yep, looking for Pokemon Research Lab, or looking for spread, grabbing those trying to punishments. I think it'll be a 1 or 2 of in decks.
Yeah, I personally really like it. You can Alola Ninetales for it, or you can't Alola Ninetales for a stadium. It has some viability. I think it'll be cool to have around. The last new card we're going to look at is a supporter called Channeler. This Pokemon supporter card it's worded really weirdly. It simply states, remove all effects of attacks on you and your Pokemon. And that's it.
So it's kind of like a Pokemon Ranger almost?
Kind of. Because it's not necessarily ability lock or ability removal. It is remove all effects of attacks on you and your Pokemon.
So I guess that could be doable, but like if you're got someone using a GX attack or an attack that you can't play cards from your hand, it kind of pointless in terms of that. But I don't know, this could be doable.
I guess because you can't use it as a defensive card because unlike Hex Maniac that shut down abilities until the beginning of your next turn, right? It lasted more than a turn,
Yeah.
right? It lasted like both players' turns. This has to be on your turn and only your turn. So you're right, though. It can get through. It allows you to get through things like Jolteon GX's attack, Dawnwing's Necrozma's attack. There's a few other GXs that have that ability. But you're right. Those cards that lock you. Even Honchkro's ability.
Yeah, which will be kind of nice too, especially like you can't Guzma out of it by rotation, assuming there's no type of switch card to switch your opponent's active Pokemon out. But yeah, I guess that could be played maybe a 1 or 2 of, depending on what's becoming a meta at that time.
Yeah, and even in terms of what we have now, I think it can get you around Vileplume as well, which doesn't allow basic Pokemon to attack it.
But that's an ability, no?
But it's an effect. No, you're right. That wouldn't be work because it's an ability.
Well, only time will tell with Chandler, though. Like we'll see what the actual translation is. So hopefully it's maybe a little more revealing once the actual card comes out. But we'll see how good it might turn out. Is it as strong as the other 2 cards we mentioned? Probably not. I'd still play the other 2.
It's a soft check card, though. It's a card that exists and allows you to have a backup plan if a certain card ever becomes really good. So if a card that has an attack that limits you, this card is a soft check that's now in the back pocket of all players, to where if you have to play against a deck that is really good at denying you the ability to play cards or attack because of one of their attacks, this is kind of in the bank of cards that you can always add as a 1 of to help you around that matchup. So I think it's a valuable card to have, even if it doesn't see play right now.
It's techable.
It's techable, and techable cards are super important to this game. Looking down the list, we did get a couple reprints that we haven't seen. We do have Palpad getting reprinted, which is nice. We do have Pokegear getting reprinted, which isn't really relevant to us. Mysterious Treasure is getting reprinted. And I think we've mentioned it before, but Sightseer is also getting reprinted. So a lot of core cards that we have relied on the past year are being reprinted, at least in Japan. And hopefully we'll get them overseas, because having cards like Palpad, it's nice to have. And if I'm correct, is Palpad rotating?
I can't remember offhand. I don't think it is.
No, it is Ultra Prism, so it wasn't rotating anyway. But it is nice to see that it will be around for a longer period of time now. Because again, it's kind of like we talked about with Channeler. It's nice to have that card with us. I think so.
It is.
Moving forward into our gym promos. The gym promos in Japan never come over in the same way, but I imagine that it's going to probably be maybe a box or just put in one of our sets. I can see this first card being in a box. The two cards that we're going to talk about are Caracosta GX and Dragonium Z. The other cards on the list, there's a Swadloon, a Basculin, there's that Execute we talked about last week, Crabrawler, Igglybuff, but those cards are kind of irrelevant. If you want to check them out, Poke Beach is always the best place to go see that. The first card, Caracosta GX, is a fighting type, 250 HP. It is a stage 2 and evolves from Tortuga, which would evolve from an unidentified fossil. It has the ability High Density Armor. If this Pokemon is at max HP, any damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's attacks is reduced by 90. It has an attack Ground Break for 1 fighting and 3 colorless, does 160 damage, and the defending Pokemon cannot retreat during your opponent's next turn. GX attack, 1 colorless, Stone Age GX. Search your discard pile for any number of cards that evolve from unidentified fossil and play them onto your bench. So this is again a pure fossil support card that's pretty beefy. It's that ability makes it pretty beefy.
Yeah, especially with the new potion coming out too, where you, I believe, heal 60 from your opponent, your GX Pokemon.
I can tell you right now, I believe it's 50.
50, sorry. But the amount of damage you'll be taking, heal that off. I think you'll be back to 0, depending on some of that stuff. So 90, 50 is 140. So you might have a little bit here and there left, but you got some other things you can use to heal.
Yeah, it's a cool card. And there's also a mini Caracosta that was revealed in Miracle Twins that isn't the GX that could be played with it. It has the ability Old Custom, and it basically just turns off your opponent's Pokemon tools. So those choice bands, anything else, that's kind of nullified a little bit. So, like you said, it probably won't take damage, or it'll take pretty irrelevant damage that first turn that you hit it. And getting to 4 energy, 3 of them being colorless, is not that hard to do.
Not with triple acceleration energy.
It's really cool that we can look at that now and be like, all right, that's really not that bad.
Yeah, the only downside to me for it is like we were talking about before, these a lot of fighting Pokemon is like a 2-hit type of thing, to the point which puts you on turns on how many things you actually can use it, especially with triple acceleration energy. So in an ideal world, you can only use Ground Break 160 for 160 maybe 4 times in a row.
Yeah, 160 is a 2-shot, but it'll never be a 1-shot. It does take care of Alolan Exeggutor though, for the sake of the conversation.
It does. This is my hard counter.
Yeah, and I was worried about it being a stage 2, but again, with Pokemon Research Lab, it searches for 2 Pokemon that evolve from unidentified fossil. So, yeah, it's a stage 2, so you'd have to evolve anyway. But being able to search for 2 different Pokemon, it kind of gives you a little bit of a safety cushion, because you could look for 2 Tortuga, you could look for a Tortuga and an Aerodactyl, Tortuga and an Ammonite, because Omastar is still in the format from Team Up. There's a lot of ways that you could still use this card. So again, I think Caracosta really looks like it's going to be a box promo. It just screams that to me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I just don't see myself playing the card unless it's some kind of heavy stall deck.
No, it has a cool ability, but it's a one-time thing for the most part, and yeah, it's nothing too crazy. The Dragonium Z, though, is really cool. So we now have our 3rd Z tool. I believe it's our 3rd. We have Normalium, we have Flynium, and now we have Dragonium. It is a Pokemon tool. If this card is attached to a Pokemon with a Dragon Claw attack, that Pokemon can use the GX attack on this card. And it's triple colorless like it was before. Dragon Burn GX. 80 damage. Discard all basic energy attached to this Pokemon. This attack does 80 damage for each card discarded in that way. It was really, really good until I read that it's basic energy. So you can't really use TCE as a way to boost the attack, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, but there's a really good partner for it though.
Which is
Dragonite GX, the new one coming out from Miracle Twins.
Ooh, wait, does it know Dragon Claw?
It knows Dragon Claw for 3 energy.
Interesting.
It does 130. So you can start smacking things around with Sky Judgment for 270. Do some really great damage heading around. You can use that as a closer.
Well, you can Sky Judgment and then turn 2 Dragonium and you hit for 240 instead of 130 for 3 energy.
Yeah, you can, like I said, you can probably do a nice closer with that.
That's interesting. I didn't even realize it. I wonder if there's any other. Those are the only dragons other than Noivern in the set. I'd have to go back and look to see what other Pokemon know Dragon Claw.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that research. It's going to take some time to figure that one out because I think I did a quick little search. It kept bringing me up to like the Pokemon attacks for the VGC, so like I got really annoyed with it, so I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first thing that popped in my head was the Dragon Claw from Dragonite GX and Miracle Twins.
Yeah, and granted, most Dragon cards aren't that great, so I'm not sure if it'll matter. But for Dragonite's sake, it does. So really, this is a really cool tech in a deck that, again, might finally be playable. Dragonite might end up being playable.
It's so playable now.
It's still a stage 2. It still has to deal with that, though. I know there's Ninetales and stuff, but we still have to respect the fact. Even though you're right, it can go a little bit faster now.
That, and you have your prisms that bring out the dragons once they get knocked out. So this looks really good. Put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And so looking at these kind of 5 cards we looked over, I think we're looking at some pretty cool cards coming out. Fossil is gonna make another attempt. And the last time fossils were good, I want to say was Archeops with the evolution lock.
Oh, it's always good.
Yeah, fossils have always been just a little slow, and I think this will be the first time in a while.
Yeah, Archeops has always been good though, like for that card.
Well, it got banned. I mean, it was so good it got banned.
Yeah.
Moving on though, so we have our cards. We talked about them. Again, there's about 5 cards. If you want to check out any of the other cards, go to Poke Beach. That is always the place you should go because they usually have the most up-to-date, right on the minute information that we use to help us put together the podcast content.
Yeah, and if you read closely enough, you might find something funny written to them. So, for example, when you go over Miracle Twins and you go down to Noivern, it had an attack. Well, I'm excited for that one because it is like a flying flip. It's Boom Burst, and you do 20 to everything. But the more thing I'm excited about, actually, it was pretty funny when I read it, was Dragon Pulse. Basically, 3 energy, there's 120. But discard top card of your deck, and then the little funny thing they'll add in there sometimes is then tickle your opponent.
Yeah, then tickle your opponent and get DQ'd for touching your opponent.
Yeah.
Wonderful job, Poke Beach.
Yeah, they do a great job of trying to throw some humor into things like that.
They do. And I just to jump onto that really quick though, I can't tell if this other card is a joke either. There's an Oranguru that has an attack called Wise Interrogation. And it says choose a Pokemon card from your hand and put it face down. Have your opponent guess its type. If they guess it correctly, they draw 4 cards, and if not, you draw 4. And then you put that Pokemon back into your hand. I can't tell if that's real or not. I think it is.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll figure that one out hopefully when it comes out. But
there's a lot of text there.
Okay, so of all the names or things that Poke Beach does, though, in terms of like naming something or doing something for attacks, what's your favorite thing that you found? Like, I know there's some like really funny Tapus that they give names to.
Oh, easily Tapu Hihi. Easily Tapu Hihi. There's no question. I want to say there's been other ones, but Tapu Hihi instead of Tapu Fini, easily the best one. The last set of news that we have to go over, though, isn't about new cards. It's actually about some older cards. And that is we have some more Hidden Fates news. And things are starting to become a little more clear with what we're going to be getting in terms of that set. So the Elite Trainer box for Hidden Fates has been released by distributors, and we can finally confirm a few things with this set. It is going to be a holiday set, and there's going to be Hidden Fates promo boxes. The ETB will have 10 packs as opposed to 8, because that's kind of how those specialty ETBs work. And the Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres tag team is actually going to be a promo in there. So you're actually going to get a full art version of it. The ETB will come with that, 10 packs. And now we can kind of figure out what the set might be. From what we know, we are going to get the over 75 shiny Pokemon. That's what it says on the article, at least. So I believe in total there's a little bit under 90. So just shy under 90, we are going to get all of those shiny Pokemon cards. And that's also going to be combined with something called the Family Box that Japan got. So we have 2 sets. They're going to be squished together in some way. And that's how we're going to get them. Unfortunately, the Family Box set is really bad. And the ultra shiny set in Japan, where all these shinies came from, has a lot of reprinted cards or cards that we already got printed in a different way with the exact same art that we got them in. So Japan just kind of got them in an alternative way because most of the cards on this list, actually all of them, have already been printed in the US. So I highly doubt that they're all going to come over. If I'm betting anything, we're literally just going to get the shiny Pokemon from Ultra Shiny, and our basic cards might end up being like the cruddy cards from the Family Box, unfortunately. And there's really nothing on here.
No.
It's literally a bunch of cards that you give to people to try out for the first time. There's like nothing on here. So
like it would have been helpful like having this as a kid sometimes, like because a kid, like, you don't want to read text, you want to play a Pokemon, you want to smash. This is a good time for kids who want to learn how to play Pokemon and just smash other Pokemon by just attacking and not caring what the card says.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting how they print this set too, because Shining Legends and Dragon's Majesty, those were kind of our holiday sets, correct?
Yes.
All of these cards are pretty much reprints. So this might be a set that's literally just a bunch of reprints and a bunch of alternative arts.
But the cool thing I like about this, okay, so this is like the best cards of the last few sets, which I'm really excited about. But do you know what's on that list for the best cards? And one of those best cards?
Huh.
Alone Executor. That means it's good. It's not bad. It's good.
It is. No, it is good. And there's a lot of cool cards in here. And we've talked about it before. If we get all of these, I'm hoping that because of the weird way that both of these sets look, we're going to get it in a way where, kind of like the Legendary Collection, where there's multiple rares in a pack and maybe at least a guaranteed shiny. So you can put the sets together a little quicker. These are going to be all playable and expanded, but that's about it by the time we get them. So I don't really know. I don't really know what's going to happen with this set. I'm really interested to see how it's put together, because literally everything that's not a shiny Pokemon, we already have in the format. All of it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's a single card on this list that isn't shiny that we don't have.
Yeah, that's worth making another set of them. But like, you get Macargo, which is good. Well, Full and Vulpix Beacon will be gone.
Well, that's something. All of it. I mean, some of it stays, but for the most part, it all goes.
Yeah, you got some Prism reprints, which will be helpful.
Which Prism reprints, which will kind of bring down the price. So yeah, I guess there is a good side to it. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll figure out what the list actually looks like.
Yeah, I don't think Ultra Cosmo is a really expensive card. They got that in there. You have a Rayquaza. I know it's a very highly collectible card. So I think that'll turn out.
Yeah, I think that this will be a fun collectible set. And it won't give you the stress of buying something at $30 because it's playable. Maybe it'll go down. I can't guarantee it because these are unique cards, but maybe the price would be a little more approachable, depending on what pull rates are like. And
if someone starts happening again to Pokemon at that time, granted, a lot of those cards are rotating out, but it gets you access to cards that you know that'll be playable. At least most of them. Yeah, correct. And I think that wraps up our news. I think overall, we got some pretty good news this week. A couple new cards to talk about. Hidden Fates, we got a little more information. Up next, we're going to talk about Madison, but real quick before we go on to that, let's hear a quick word about our sponsor. All right, welcome back from that quick break. It is time for our tournament topic of the episode. We are going to discuss the upcoming regional in Madison, Wisconsin. Normally, when we talk about tournaments, we do our winner, our dark horse, and then our flop. This week, we're going to change it into just the top 3 decks that we think have a potential to win.
and we're going to rank them, first being the one that we think is going to win, and then the next two being decks that we wouldn't be shocked if we saw it win. Madison, as I talked about at the beginning, is a super unique tournament. The past couple of years, including this one, it has been placed in a way in which it's right after a new set comes into the meta. It's not the first tournament every time, but usually it's the second tournament.
Sets the pace.
Yeah, and I believe last year it wasn't, because I'm pretty sure the first Forbidden Light tournament was expanded, but the year before with Guardians Rising, it was the second tournament where the decks were legal, where the cards were legal, and it really shows in the results, because I did a little bit of research. Before we go into our picks for this year, I want to kind of briefly tell you about what's happened in the past couple of years. 2 years ago in Madison, which I want to say is the most recent or the latest time that Madison has had a tournament. I don't know if it was there 3-4 years ago in Madison. It was right after Guardians Rising came out. So we had Drampa, we had Garbodor, Trash Lance, we had Tapu Lele GX. We had a lot of cool cards come out and make their debut. In the tournament before Madison, we had like 72,000 Garb variants. The tournament before that, I want to say, was in Seattle. And literally, if you go to Limitless, I think the first 40 decks on that page are 85% Drampa Garb and 15% Espeon Garb. I mean, no joke. That tournament was just, hey, it's Guardians Rising. Trash Lance, it's really strong. Have fun, bye.
But Lapras was around. That was like a deck.
It didn't work in Seattle.
No? What was that guy who made Lapras GX popular? I'm trying to remember the name. The guy is from the West Coast.
Off the top of my head, I have no idea.
I can't remember. It's going to come to me later.
Yeah, and if you have it, you can just shout it randomly, and we will figure it out. But yeah, that first tournament, a lot of Garb variants. The Madison tournament, very few. Like a week or two later, it just kind of went away for a little bit. The winner of that tournament was Michael Pramawat, and he won it with Vespiquen Zoroark, not the GX Zoroark, the what's it called? Team, the one where it jumps in.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't remember offhand, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, where it's got the stand-in.
Stand-in, that's what it is.
Yeah, stand-in, and then you wreck someone for 30 for each Pokemon on their bench.
Yeah, it's 10 plus 30. So Vespiquen Zoroark won that tournament, and looking down that list, not a ton of Garbodors. So Madison became a tournament where everyone saw the meta and then went, all right, this is what I saw. Let me build something that I think can beat it. And it looked like, for the most part, that everyone prepared that. It kind of looked like everyone went, yeah, I'm not going to play that. And again, like I said, I'm looking at it in front of me. There was an SB Garb in top 4, but it was very scattered after that. There was a lot of Vespiquen Zoroarks. There was some Bulu, some Alola Ninetales. I mean, it was kind of spread out.
That was a fun meta, though.
It was a fun meta. I mean, Decidueye was also in the top 8.
With Forest of Giant Plants.
Oh, this is the tournament with Metagross. This was Szymanski's Metagross tournament.
Oh, that's right. He won that one.
No, he got second place.
Second place. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we were talking about this before the podcast. This is the tournament where Szymanski brought Metagross to second place.
I remember that too, just think, like, 'cause I had like 3 or 4 of them, and then like I sold them a few days before the tournament, and that popped up, and then the Metagross spiked in price. I was like, shoot.
Oops. Yeah, it was a really reactive tournament. Madison was a reactive meta to the previous tournament. In 2018, which we went to this regional last year, it wasn't as reactive because the first tournament where Forbidden Light was legal was an expanded one. And in that expanded tournament, it wasn't any real prediction because Trevenant's there, Wailord's there. There's cards that aren't in standard. But at Madison, the winning deck was Buzzrock, because this was the first standard tournament where Baby Buzz was legal. And out of all of the day 2 decks, there are a lot of Buzzrocks.
I think it was at the seniors that it happened where, was it Michael Long? Well, of course we know what happened to Michael Long, but was it bubbled for a win? Do you remember that?
It was something weird.
There's like one card left, he bubbled, and then he just won it because he had that Froakie on the active net set.
If only Masters could be that hype. Instead, we're just dealing with getting smacked by swing around for 8 billion damage. This was the meta where Diancie, Octillery, Regirock EX, all these cards with Max Elixir, Beast Ring, were all in one format at the same time. And Beast Energy.
It was scary.
Yeah, it was a very Buzzwole heavy meta. And it didn't have time to really be reactive because it was the first standard tournament. The tournament after it was Internats, so I didn't really use that in terms of my research. This year, I think it's going to go back to a reactive meta. The interesting part, though, is we had 3 regionals that happened in 3 very different places with 3 very different metas. So we were kind of spread out. Before I talk about my picks, I kind of want to toss it over to you, though, because I've been kind of talking about my research.
Okay, so are we going with winners first, or are we going to go with runners up?
Why don't you say the 2 decks that you could see winning, but you're not going to pick as your overall favorite?
All right, this is some shocker stuff. So I put Zoro Persian. That could make it, but it's not my winner. And then Reshiram Charizard Tag Team GX is not the winner, but I can see making it for sure.
What are the reasons you put those 2 there?
I just figured the deck that I pick is been performing well, and under the right person can pilot it very well. Even though control is still around, I think people are expecting control, and it did well in some places and others, but I think control can be more easily dealt with now, especially with energy acceleration that's been going around.
True. Based on the way you named your runner-ups, I have a feeling you and I might be on the same page, but we'll see. What'd you pick as your winning deck?
Wheezing Spread.
Ooh, you didn't pick the same as me. This is good. Why did you pick Wheezing?
I like it. I plan on building it myself, but I think it's got a lot of great tools for a lot of great matchups. We're in a big basic format, so taking some damage and losing some prizes early is not a big deal. It's 1 prizes, and it can probably clean and sweep house after a few turns, assuming they can get everything established.
That's fair. I mean, if you can get everything established, you're right. You're trading 1, they're trading 3 prizes, so I don't think it's a bad choice at all.
And at some point, you can take, maybe if you're lucky enough and good at it enough, you probably can take 6 prizes in a turn.
Yeah, I wonder that. You're right. It's really going to have to be piloted well. You don't think that like Max Potion and playing around the Mr. Mime is going to limit it at all?
It might for a little bit, but it might hinder those big basic decks trying to get energy acceleration. Like if you try to do that to a Pikarom or Reshiram Charizard, it's going to take you a couple turns to get back a little bit. Even though if you do, you outrage off all your energy off, and you can outrage for basically nothing.
That's fair. That makes sense. For my runner-ups, I have Reshizard and I have Naganadel Quagsire again. It performed really well in day 2, and I just think that it still has a really decent matchup against all of the meta decks for the most part. Reshizard there for its obvious reasons. Basically, I think you and I put Reshizard there as kind of like a safe, this is the strongest tag team, and if it smacks house, it's going to win thing. I don't think there's really any backup to why it's there other than the strength of the card.
Yeah, there's not much discussion with it. Basically, just boom, attack. It's really trying to set off its ego.
And if you can boom attack every turn, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But Nagquag, it's going to have its moment. I don't know if it's really going to be this tournament. It's going to have its moment. The deck that I picked to win is a deck that I picked because I did a lot of staring at the regionals from last weekend. I looked at all the decks that won. I looked at the day 2 finishes. I really tried to make a pick that was backed up by a lot of research and thought. And the one deck that I can see having a good matchup against everything is Melmetal. I think Melmetal is going to win Madison. I think that either Melmetal Vileplume or Melmetal Hoopa is going to end up winning this tournament. And the reasoning is Zapdos cannot climb it. Wheezing can stack on it, but with Max Potion, and especially if it runs a Greens engine, there's ways around it. And once Melmetal actually starts hitting, it'll be tougher. Granted, you're not really attacking me, so my GX doesn't do too much. in this matchup. So I'd be interested to see how the Wheezing Melmetal matchup actually happens. But I think that it just matches up really well. I think that you have Vileplume and Hoopa to use as ways to get around stuff. People have used Stealthy Hood to get around Vileplume, but Hoopa isn't affected by Stealthy Hood. So you can still wall against the Charizard Reshiram's. Granted, they can GX you once, but I just think that it's a hard deck to take down, dude. I don't know if it's gonna be taken down. I think it might have its moment in the sun.
I really hope it doesn't, because I just hate those type of decks. I think we talked about it several times before.
But it's not a stall deck necessarily. It can be. I don't know if it's necessarily stall, because it does take prizes.
I
thought about Shedinja, but luckily I think that's a one-time thing, and Field Blowers are just going to be played.
Yeah, I think it's run its course. Shedinja's run its course.
I think Shedinja was a one-hit wonder, and it's not going to show up. I don't think it's going to show up at all.
You know what's pretty scary though, what I played on Monday was the new Vikavolt.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, because like our professor played it, because we only had that many people, so he popped in and played, and he played it, and I was really impressed with it. I liked it a lot, and I might consider building it because it looked like a lot of fun.
It's a non-GX deck that could be cool. I agree, but
I didn't realize the power charge bug.
Yeah, that thing's ability to kind of transform itself into a resource is super strong. But Zoroark can't two-shot Melmetal, no matter what. I don't think there's a world in which Zoroark beats Melmetal. I don't think there's a world in which Zapdos beats Melmetal. I don't think there's a world in which Nagquag beats Melmetal. Pikarom, I don't think that beats Melmetal. And Reshazard is the only deck if it can get around the other techs that are in Melmetal.
And potentially Blacephalons.
Baby Blacephalon has a better matchup. Baby Blacephalon is the hard counter to Melmetal. So if a Baby Blacephalon shows up and does well, and Melmetal happens to be the best deck there, then I applaud you. But
it reminds me too. Have you heard those people? Some people on YouTube call it Blaspheon.
No.
There are people that call Blacephalon Blaspheon.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
That irks me the wrong way. I don't know who calls it Blaspheon, even though I think the anime says Blacephalon and everybody else says Blacephalon.
There are definitely people that read names and pronounce them incorrectly because it annoys people.
Yeah, but I don't think the ones I watched did it to annoy people, because there are a lot of mispronunciations.
But that's my predictions though. I think we have some unique predictions. We both have Reshazard being our no shocker if it wins deck. You had Zoro Persian, I have Nagquag, and then our winners are Wheezing or Melmetal Lucario.
I think those are pretty two left field picks, but
I don't think Melmetal's left field, dude.
It's left field.
I think it's one of the best 3 decks in the meta, if not top 2.
Ugh.
I'm serious. I'm not. I think it's a top 2 deck. Actually, I'm putting that down right now, and I'm dying on that hill. I think Melmetal Wall deck is the second best deck in the meta. I'm not saying you're gonna be happy about it.
No, I will not be happy about it at all.
But you cannot name many decks that are better than it right now. There just aren't.
Baby Blacephalon.
Well, are you about to say Baby Blacephalon's number 1?
No,
I think
it's not judge proof. It's not let loose proof yet.
Right. So it's not going to do much. That kind of wraps it up for us, though. It was a pretty, like I said, packed in podcast with some really good information. I'm excited to watch the tournament this weekend, see how our predictions end up going. Do you have anything to say, Joe, before we head out?
Nope. I know we've got a lot of practice to get done. There's an ARG tournament they're going to be heading to this weekend. At least I want to try. The only downer about ARG, I just don't like the best of 3 formats the entire way through it, because it makes it for a long day. But hopefully with the tournament in Madison this weekend, brings the numbers down a little bit and makes it a little quicker game, quick weekend. Yeah,
come back with a cool mat from the shop and be able to watch some really good games.
Get my invite.
Get that ARG invite, my boy. So much better than Worlds. Get that ARG invite that like 7 people go to.
It's more attainable.
I got mine at the first ARG I went to, and it's like this little floppy piece of cardboard, and you're like, you've been invited. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm invited. I don't feel very invited.
Oh, come on. You gotta go.
One day. I'll go to an ARG. What do we call it? An ARG Invitational?
Yeah, probably.
Well, one day. We'll leave that as our final notes here, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We will be talking about our feelings about Madison next week. There will be more card leaks, so we'll have that as well.
You want to talk about your feelings?
There will be a therapy session next week when Joe realizes that Melmetal is one of the best decks in the format.
No.
It'll be quite an emotional podcast. So bring your tissue boxes.
First step is denial,
which he's already going through right now. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. See, Joe, you threw me off now. You threw me off with all of this. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we will see you guys next week.